la. Okay, and 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this part's going to start the section where I'm going to talk about my favorite things about the series, the things I didn't like. First off, I mean, I'm sure it's obvious by now that I love the way this thing was written, it was paced, the way it was directed, the imagery, the art. Everything about this just gave the series, I hate to keep reusing this word, but it gave it a texture you just do not see anywhere in media for the most part these days. So it was a real refreshing thing for me to find at the time when I first came across it, which I believe was... I think I saw this for the first time around 2002. Came across it by accident at work one day. It just happened to be playing. Well, you know, we won't go into that. But anyway, it was a fellow I was working with that introduced me to it, however indirectly. And I was hooked on it ever since. I still wind up watching it. It airs on Adult Swim a lot. So there's a good way to check it out. Cartoon Network. Check it. But I think my favorite character out of all these, and it's hard to pick one. It's hard because they're all so good. But my favorite out of the main crew would have to be Jet Black. And he's just such an interesting character. He's that reluctant father figure, but you can tell that he's just all the time looking at everyone else around him, from Spike, especially Faye, not to mention Ed. And you can tell that there's sometimes where he's sitting there saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. This is what we need to do. This is the only thing that makes sense. Trust me, I'm the old fart. I know best. Everyone goes, yeah, that's nice. We're going to go do this. Is that what? Were you not listening to me? And you always see him do this. Ugh. And you can see it written in his face. There's so much in the art with the expressions on these characters, but especially him, and he said, why do I bother with these damn kids? And especially now that I am a father, I'm relating to this character even more, because God bless him, my son Connor, he'll be doing something. I'll go, Connor, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. Connor, don't do that. I told you were going to get hurt. Why don't you listen to me? And I've actually said this several times on comments on Larry Williams' Thundercats reviews, where not only does the character Panthro visually remind you so much of Jet Black, but at this point, you know, it's like, yeah, he's got the prosthetic robotic arms. His voice is more or less the same. His mannerisms are the same. Let's face it, Panthro's Jet Black. But I just can't help it. I mean, it's that guy who has to constantly step back and go, I know I shouldn't be the smartest person here. What's going on? Why am I stuck with you people? Why do I care? Why don't I just leave? And then realizes he just can't, you know. But I don't know. He brings a flavor to the entire thing. He's the authority that is ignored, and that is an archetype that I always get such amusement out of. Makes me think of Bill Cosby's special from so long ago, Myself, where he's sitting there talking about kids are all brain damaged. And you can tell that's what's going through his mind constantly, especially where Spike's concerned. But I'm going to move on. I think my favorite bounty, as far as people they were going after in this show, because that was a big theme, and the great part about it, even though that was a big part of the story, it was used as a vehicle for the story. The main action in these episodes was centered around a way to tell the story of what was going on with the characters, rather than being action for action's sake, which is what we see in a lot of these animes now, and that's a shame. I mean, yeah, action has its point. It's always nice to have what I call a fun episode inserted once in a while. But when that becomes the only thing that you are working towards, it's sad. This series did it correctly. You had action, you had something different going on every week, every episode. But it was a vehicle to show, here is what's going on in these characters' lives right now. And this is going to be the thing that brings out this theme and this character on this episode. So, you know, it can be just for the fact of something triggers a memory for Faye, or something triggers a flashback for Jet or for Spike. It could be something that in some convoluted way brings out more details about Ed's past, because no one can make sense of anything that girl says and anything he learns by accident. But everything served a purpose, and it was a greater purpose than simply being what it was for itself. Larry, that one was for you. As far as my favorite bounty, to get back to the original thing, had to be a character by the name of Grin, who was on the episode Jupiter Jazz, which is also my #1 favorite episode of the series. Basically, they're given a bounty to go after this individual, and in the midst of everything that's going on, they find out this guy has been in league with Vicious before during one of the wars on Venus, and they were actually brothers in arms. I don't want to give away too much, so I'm trying to be real careful here what I say, but basically Grin is a jazz saxophonist in one of the local bars. I can't remember what it was called, as the Blue Note or something like that. But anyway, there's this beacon signal being sent out that Ed comes across one day, and it simply says Julia. Well, that sets Spike into a frenzy, and he just, out the door, there he goes. There's Jet going, "Wait, stupid kids, where are you going?" And that leads into the whole thing. Faye Valentine, of all people, winds up being the one that finds Grin, mistakes Grin for a woman, due to, we can assume it's kind of like an Agent Orange kind of thing, where he has been genetically changed somehow into a woman. And throughout the course of things, we find out that Grin is this person who they've put the bounty on, and then it's all the characters dealing with, well, how are we going to treat this? And all of them having their own conflicts as to why to either take in Grin or let her go. And it's a great episode. It really shows the different sides of what makes up the crew, as far as who's after the money, what can make them give up the thought of, well, there's something more going on here than just us making a few wulong. Let's, show some compassion, or let's not in some cases. And this is one of those episodes that just hit it spot on. Plus, is nothing but backstory for what's been going on with Spike, Julia, and everything else. So it's just really interesting. You get to see some different sides of some of the other characters that you didn't really see up until then. So I guess I kind of covered that episode too. Other favorite characters, there's a group of 3 old men, excuse me, coffee break, because, hey. There's a group of 3 old men that throughout the entire series, they're that Easter egg. You know it's coming up. You don't know when. But it seems like everywhere the Bebop goes, where they're hunting the bounty of the week or whatever, all of a sudden they'll come across these old men. They're usually in the background playing cards or arguing, or, just being senile old men trying to fumble their way through something. And it's delightful the way they do it. It turns out it's like, wait for. It's the old men, they're playing dominoes and they're arguing about such and such, and has almost nothing to do with the storyline, but it's always amusing to see how, in some small way, it ties in. especially one of the more emotional episodes later on when you find out one of them's playing chess over the internet with Ed, and that's really interesting. But they're just a refreshing little aspect of the show, the little comic relief that's allowed in every so often. Also, there was Cowboy Andy from another one of my favorite episodes called Cowboy Funk, and he has decided that, okay, I can't remember. I can't remember if he said his name was Wyatt Earp. I want to say he said his name was Wyatt Earp. He was basically, he was the billionaire playboy who suddenly one day decided, I'm not only going to be a cowboy, I'm going to be a real cowboy. I'll call myself Wyatt Earp. I'm going to have a horse, and I'm going to go bounty hunting and be the stereotypical singing cowboy. That was going to be his gimmick, and it was just funny to see how he went from that during that episode when they were going after a terrorist by the name of Teddy Bomber, all the way through to the end of how he suddenly decided he was a samurai. So, you just got to see that episode. That was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen on TV. So those are my two favorite characters. Of course, I already covered that Jupiter Jazz was one of my favorite episodes, a two-part episode no less. The other one was Ganymede Elegy. This was the one where we saw a backstory on Jet Black, and you get to see more of how his past was when he was the ex-cop, and you get a little bit more insight on his private life. There was a girlfriend that he had at the time, and I want to say her name was Elisa. Basically, she was the girlfriend that left him, and he never got over it. But he goes back to Ganymede, and the story opens up in a weird way where you can tell he's contemplating this old watch. And it's stopped. It's no good. It's ruined, but he's holding on to it all this time like a memento. And it turns into kind of a theme. It kind of reminds me of the chicken feather in Forrest Gump, but when you see it, you'll understand what I mean. In that it's this thing that he's carried all these years. Anyway, they're after a bounty for this one guy, and I believe I have that up here. Let me see. Yeah, after Rent Colonius. I hope I say that right. But anyway, yeah, and it was Elisa that it was. But anyway, he winds up during his travels. He comes across Elisa, and you know they kind of start trying to have a conversation. It doesn't really go the way he wants to, but you can tell he's not really going to let it go. In the meantime, Spike has gotten news of the bounty that's on this new guy, Rent Solanius? Maybe it's Solanius, the way I should be saying this. Anyway, it's for 1,800,000 wulong. So, you know, it's a good sized bounty. And he's basically going after this guy. He's like, hey, we're here on Ganymede anyway. I don't know what Jet's up to, but I'm going to make me some money. And if I do it myself, I don't have to share with anybody. So kudos for me. In the course of things, you find out that, and spoiler alert here, you find out that Rent is actually Elisa's boyfriend. And then it turns into this whole thing of Spike's trying to catch the guy, Jet's trying to get back Elise. Jet winds up having to get between Spike and Guy, gets in the middle of it, of course, and it turns into this whole thing of it's I don't know if I necessarily want to call it story arc because it's an independent episode, even though it does have to do with the theme going on with Jet Black for the most part, where it's more and more you see it's him having to let go of his guilt or his shame for his past or whatever decisions he's made and learning to move on for himself. Basically learning how to forgive himself for making mistakes and just move on. You know, before it's too late, because, you know, he's getting up in years. He might not have much longer. It's implied that he might have some health problems coming up on himself, which, you know, hey, the way the man eats and smokes and everything else, it wouldn't be a surprise. But I transgress here. It's just real neat the way they use the theme of the watch at the end to show how he's finally letting go. And says, all right, it's over between us. Good luck. I hope your life works out, and I'm going to move on with mine too. So it's a really neat theme for that episode. Let's see. Of course, the music in this show is unbelievable. For the most part, the music is produced by a group called the Seatbelts, which is a big band jazz type, band out of Japan. Great stuff, and lots of it features the singer Mai Yamami. I hope I'm saying that right. Frankly, I want this soundtrack. I think there's a couple of them out there. I just need to go dig them up. But if you do nothing else, do a search and find some of this music, especially you've got the opening theme, Tank. There is the Real Folk Blues, which is the ending credits. That one is awesome. Check it out. Matter of fact, those two songs are on ringtones from my phone. I like them so much. There's also another one called Waltz of Venus. What is that one called? Blue, which was the last song played in the series at the closing, and that was really good. Let's see. That'll pretty much cover that. I'm going to try to keep this moving, keep the video shorter. The one thing that I didn't like about the series, and I'm having to grasp here, and I did like this for reasons that were there, but I think it could have been done away with. But it was an episode called Pierrot Le Faux. And it is basically when Watanabe was talking about when he was coming up with this episode, he was thinking about all the Batman villains. Okay, he said, "Man, what would happen if I were to take all the things with those villains and make them all into one super villain? And who's most like Batman out of the crew? Ooh, I know, Spike. I'm going to pin them against each other." Basically, Spike sees this serial killer, this genetically modified madman, in the act of killing. So, of course, the madman comes after him. And the episode for itself, I can appreciate what they were doing, and it was a break from the main storyline. And frankly, I'll be the first to admit, maybe I didn't like it because it really did creep me out. But this guy is basically indestructible. And Spike has met his match more or less, and you think, oh, okay, Spike, are you going to make it out of this? And then the way it ends, it was kind of like, oh, well, okay. But overall, I have a hard time with the episode because I didn't feel like it belonged, not just where they placed it in the series, but it just didn't feel like it belonged. I felt like I would have been happier with another story that gave some more background on one of the characters, like Faye, for instance, who I really feel like was left dangling. Ed, even though there wasn't a lot said about her overall in the series, what they did say about her, it resolved it. In fact, all the characters for the most part were resolved except for Faye, which was kind of left dangling, even though that was more or less the theme for her. It was loneliness. But anyway, I feel like it was a wasted episode. That's just me. Did I like the episode? I did, but I think I would have liked it more as an independent entity rather than being inserted in this series, if that makes sense. And just to go ahead and wrap things up, I love the way it all ended. It was sad, but that's kind of the theme of the whole thing. It's loneliness, it's depression, it's isolation, and this ended that way. And it was every ending for every character seemed appropriate. When something can linger with you long enough to make you upset about it, even years later after having seen it, the writer did a good job. He connected with you emotionally, and they did this well. So what can I say bad about it? I mean, hey, they did their job. Gosh, I can only hope to get an emotional reaction from someone like that one day. So overall, I really like the series. Side note, there has been a lot of talk over the last 4 years of making a live-action film out of this series, and they did confirm that Keanu Reeves, back in 2008, was confirmed to play the role of Spike Spiegel. I think, hey, perfect, who better? But it was last year, 2011, they sent the script back to rewrite because of budgeting issues. So once again, it's the same old story. Money, money, money. Money is more valuable than time, but time is money, and they got to make sure that they're going to make it. They don't have enough faith in it to invest the extra money that was being requested, so I'm hoping that we do still get this movie if it's done well. This is one that, as far as a live action show, it'll be make or break. Either it'll be perfect or it'll be trash, and I'm worried about it, but I'm excited about the prospect. And hey, what else can you do? Anyway, it's been delayed for almost a year now, and there's been nothing else coming up as far as rumors, but that's the way they did with Spider-Man, X-Men, and so many others for so many years too, and look at the success those had. Overall, out of 5 stars, I've got to give this one 5 stars. It is a great series. I highly recommend it. I would say this was appropriate for adolescents up. All the violence that's in it is very censored. It's done in a classy kind of way where even if you do see blood, it's at this point less than what you see on daytime TV. It's safe. Does it have some adult themes? Definitely, but it's nothing that a teenager isn't dealing with anyway. So if you're worried, if you're a parent watching this to see if it's a good one for your teenagers, let them watch it. Watch it with them. You'll have fun too. It is a deep enough story that you won't be bored. So definitely check it out. That's going to wrap it up for now. I'm going to dedicate this one to OAW. I am a loyal fan and member of the AOW Nation, or whatever you want to call it. Larry, I know you said you're going to do a review on Cowboy Bebop, and we wound up doing the Q&A instead. That's great. I loved it. I love what you do. So as a member of the OAW family, I'm making this sacrifice for you and doing the review for you. Feel free to fill in the gaps and tell me how horribly I did. But hey, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And this wraps up my first series review here on the Blue Horse Collective. I will see you next time.